All right, everybody. Come have a seat. If you're here to learn about fundraising, you are certainly in the right room. If you're here to learn about capitalizing your business, you're in the right room. If you're here to learn about capitalizing your life, I'd say you're also in the right business. The right room for that too. All right. Who's got my money? Welcome, welcome, welcome. The game. How many of you guys, what do you guys think of when we talk about the game? What's something that comes to your mind? In this context, not in this context. Don't be shy. The Wire? That's what he said. Okay, what else? Don't be shy. Anything you notice? Anything that comes to mind?
Settlers of Catan.
Yeah, that's nice. Yep. Okay. Fundraising, though, why would we be talking about the game? How many of you guys hear people refer to business as a game? You ever hear that? You ever hear somebody that's ultra successful to say, I love playing the game? You know they don't need to be doing it anymore. 20 years ago they could have stopped. They have enough money, they could literally not spend it in a lifetime, and yet they still like to play the game. You've heard that before? Okay. How many of you guys like to play the game? Okay. What game are we talking about, though? Which game do you love?
Which game do I love?
Yeah?
Game of life.
Game of life? All right, going a little deeper here. Anybody else? Everybody's being quiet as a church mouse.
The game of closing a deal.
The game of closing a deal. That's a good one. That feels good, doesn't it? All right. Anybody else? Game of Thrones. Okay. Anything else you guys notice about this slide before we move on?
Your money bank.
Sure. Money, yeah. Okay. It says what on there twice?
The game.
You guys know me pretty well. Do you think I would put something up on there twice, not intentionally? No. That's right. I would not. All right. So we got the big game you guys are all here for. Talk to us about money. Talk to us about fundraising. We got that. But then we've got the real game underneath it. And if you notice, the top one's got all the money swirling around. If you notice really closely, we've got the game underneath it, the underlying game, the real game, the game of life, the game with ourselves. And you've got these individuals down here, it's less about money. So I'd suggest to you that there is certainly more than one game. Oops, I gotta come down here now. More than one game that we could play. Oh crap, now I don't have my controls. Here, hold tight. Due to formatting, we have some things I have to keep in mind. Okay, I think that's gonna work now. All right, so here's one of the questions. I'm gonna be asking you guys a lot of questions today. And you guys get to decide. So are you in the game? How many of you guys feel like you're actually in the game? Okay, Bryant, Bashir, okay, have lots of raised hands. You feel like you're in the game. Okay, what do you mean by that? When you say that? What do you mean by that?
To actively participate to the best of your ability.
Actively participate to the best of your ability, okay. Would you say you're in the game?
Well, maybe 30% of the time.
30% of the time. Some honesty in the room. I like that, actually. So there's two games that we could talk about. I alluded to the meta game, which is the game of life. And I know you guys came here for fundraising, but it's all connected. How we do one thing tends to be how we do everything. So I would tell you that in general, when it comes to fundraising, most founders are not even close to being in the game. Not even close. They don't even know what the game is. They don't know that there is a game. They don't know that fundraising is a game. They don't realize that fundraising is rigged. That doesn't mean that it's anti-you or that somebody's trying to keep you out. It means there is a game. There is a pattern to money, to the way that great deals, great founders, great projects get funded, especially when somebody decides to rig the game for you. One of two things has to be true. Either you have to know the game and know how to play it, which very few people do, or you've got to have somebody else rig it in your favor. And in our topics in the past that we've covered, we talked about how did Uber get funded, how did Airbnb get funded, how did the biggest companies in the world get funded, and all of them were rigged. Somebody that knew what they were doing sat down with the founder and explained to them look, these are the steps you're going to follow, and this is what you're going to do in order to have extraordinarily successful raises. How do we know that Uber was ultra successful? Because for 10 years, the founder and a co-partner that he was put in touch with went out on a rampage and raised successfully for 10 years straight. Billions and billions of dollars, $20 billion plus. Accumulatively. Cool. So I think this is a pretty important question because I think most founders think that they're in the game. Most fund managers think they're in the game. Instead, they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. There's no intentionality. There's no thought to it. There's no understanding. Am I playing the larger game of being the observer and playing the metagame with myself and saying this is the game of life, and I choose in the game of life to play the game of capital, to play the game of business. Okay? And I think this is really important because most folks can't. If you can't see it as a game, you're going to hate fundraising. How many people hate fundraising? How many people think it's really difficult? We got some hands. You guys will never raise any money. Energetically, if your meta energy is I hate fundraising, it's so difficult, that's the experience you'll have. Here's the deal. It's going to be challenging, but if it's a game and you just know you get to play another round and that every time you play the next round, every time you practice, every time you put in effort, every time you get another at bat, every time you do another pitch, you just get better and better and better and better at the game. So we haven't done a session on money energetics and what your money raising mindset is. We will do one of those again here soon. We're getting a lot of requests for that. But if you don't want to be in the game and you don't understand that it is a game, you don't understand that it's rigged, right? How many of you guys played Monopoly? You guys remember that? There's a way to kind of rig that too, right? You started to see there was a pattern, there's a system. I can buy how many greenhouses and then I can trade those in for what? A red hotel, right? And you start being able to make bigger and bigger cash plays, right? It's the same thing with fundraising, understanding the relationships. But in order to understand a relationship to other people and capital, have you taken the time to ask yourself, what's my relationship to myself? Because here's the crazy thing. Great founders always get funded. Why is that? Great projects always get funded. Like, there's somebody that's been in Silicon Valley for 25 years, and I asked him the other day, hey, what is your opinion on fundraising? And he said, basically, too long didn't read. Great founders, great projects get funded. And I think most founders, when they approach fundraising, they don't ever ask themselves, am I good enough? Am I showing up as my best? Am I hitting the game with intensity? Am I doing the best that I can when I'm in game mode, right? So these are some things you can just ask yourself. And the cool thing is there aren't necessarily always right or wrong questions. So I come from Utah. Everybody knows I'm into mountain biking. There are things that you could suggest people do just to do them to enjoy them because they look at it as a game. So for example, how many of you guys have ever fly fished before? You know, the vast majority of the time, the fly fishermen, when they catch the fish, right, they've got this little fly that they're with the line. They're going in and out, and the fly just ends up on the top of the water, and it mimics like a larvae or something like that, right? And the fish needs to jump at it and grab it. So most of the time, the person that's fishing knows they're not going to get that many bites, first of all, okay? So the hit rate's not very high. Second, when they actually get a fish to bite on it, what do you think the average fly fisherman does? Once they get the fish in the net, they almost always put it back into the water. What the crap? What's the point of fishing? Somebody might say, right? It depends on the game that particular person's decided to play. And for most fly fishermen, they're out there for the meditative practice of being out there in the mountains, being out there in the river, being out there and just experiencing it. So that's one way to play. And this doesn't sound that crazy now that we're framing there are people that choose to play business not because they have to, but because they can. So that might be something for you guys to think about. You know, coming to this next, oh, there we go. So there's a whole book on this topic. We're going to be talking a lot about games today. We've got experts in the room on games. So there's a guy named C.T. Wynn who is a philosopher. And they wrote a book called The Score, which I can make available to you. Very, very interesting. And The Score is all about how does keeping score hold us back in life. I think sometimes people feel they must go fundraise instead of bootstrap or must fundraise at a certain time or fundraise right now versus later because everyone's keeping score. You're not successful as a founder unless you fundraise a bunch of money. It's not true. You're successful as a founder depending on what you choose to build and what the exit plan is, and sometimes that requires fundraising, sometimes it doesn't. But don't be forced to do it just because you think that's the default. Don't be forced to do it just because you're lazy. Choose to do it because you decide that this is the way you choose to play the game. And I think it changes the energy of how you approach this. So in the book, CT explains to us there's this thing called value capture. How many of you guys think you actually live by your values? And give me a ratio. Okay, you raise your hand. Give me a ratio of how much you live by your values. Your values.
My values?
Yeah.
I'm going to say
That's a very, very high number. Feel free, don't be shy, ladies, come on in. That's a very, very, very high number. I'm going to suggest that's probably not true, but I don't know you. So, and I would say that if I give myself anything more than north of 75%, it's always good when you walk in front of the camera. I'm just messing with you. So anything north of 75%, most of us don't live intentionally. Most of us don't live fully conscious most of the time. We're an autopilot. Oh, I'm a startup founder. I got to go raise millions of dollars. And so I'm going to make an argument here, as does this book, that there's a difference between our values and the world's values. And the world will do everything it can. It's not against us, but the world will do everything it can to get us to all be the same. And we'll do everything that it can for our values to be the world's values versus our values. So as we start to score things, as we start to quantify things, we start to have our values be captured by the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you guys think this only happens in the real world and doesn't happen in startups, it happens the worst in startups. It's all a status game, right? And so I just want to call into question, as we start getting into fundraising mode, we get into the money-raising mindset. I want us to start thinking about, is this my values I'm choosing to live and build by? Am I building a family, a foundation, a team around our shared values or the world's values? Because the world's telling us we have to fundraise. You're always going to fundraise. It's how you choose to do it. Are you doing it through client and sales capital, or are you doing it through capitalization through investment, right? And as we talked about with those that like to fly fish, they're just playing the game because they like to play the game and fly fish, not because the score is about how many fish they catch. So as a mountain biker, I have goals. I like to ride 150 days a year. I like to ride and climb a certain amount of feet, 100,000 feet in a year. And I like to have a certain amount of mileage, 1,500 miles that I ride over very, very, very challenging terrain. And many times I come home bloodied and beat up and whatever. But as I've gotten more into the sport, there were things that I really used to hate, like breaking some part of the bike and having to walk in 115-degree heat. I really didn't like that a couple of years ago. I was like, this sucks. But as I've learned to play the game, I said, you know, if I'm going to ride this hard over this difficult a terrain, out in the middle of nowhere, experiencing this much beauty, being able to feel gratitude that it's 12 o'clock in the middle of the day and everybody else is working, and I'm here on this ridiculously expensive mountain bike, enjoying amazing audiobooks. It's my classroom. All of this benefit, I'm going to break stuff. I'm going to move fast. I'm going to break stuff. And what that means is my experience gets to be, the new game I get to play is the entirety of the experience. Not only when the bike's riding great and I'm feeling good and I'm in tune with the mountain, but also the time when it's 10 miles away from the car and I break a bunch of stuff and I've got to carry the bike up the side of the mountain. That's the new game I'm in now. I still have metrics and quantitative goals, but now I have some qualitative aspects that I look at. I'll give you an example. There's a particular climb here in Vegas that's ridiculously difficult. You come down, and all of a sudden, you come around a corner. It's a cliff wall. You come around a corner, and it goes straight up a narrow path. It's no wider than 2 feet, and it's a 40-foot drop off the side. I love that kind of stuff, by the way. So the 40-foot drop's not an issue. But if I don't come in with the right speed, the right traction, the right angle, the right body positioning, everything, the right power through the legs, you could easily fall off the side, and it's very difficult to get up. In the past, I'd ride it once, I nail it, I'm good. Now, my new goal is qualitative, not quantitative, right? So now I'm like, can I ride it 3 times in a row? Now I know that I've achieved some level of mastery, right? So some days I allow myself to go and practice. Practice is something most people are severely lacking when it comes to fundraising. They go and they pitch once and they're like, I didn't raise any money, what's wrong? Kurt, I talked to a bunch of investors. Nobody funded me. Well, how many did you talk to? 10. Okay, well, Mr. or Miss Founder, your volume is off. You've got to go practice more. The average investment comes from 200 pitches and 5 to 7 saying yes. So play just to play. How often do we go in with that energy, right? We don't, a lot of times. I'm a pretty serious person. I'm very intense. Most people know this. But I do look at life as play. I look at my VC partners and the things we do, the companies we fund. I don't know the difference between when we're playing and when we're working because it's so much fun. I wake up every day excited to do the things we do. So I would suggest to you, if you're not building something where you're obsessed with the problem, where you're willing to go do the early homework of making sure you verify and validate that what you're building the market wants to buy, you'll never fundraise. That's another dirty secret of building a startup is that if you don't go talk to any clients or customers, you don't have a business, you have a hobby, right? And you're never going to raise any money. Okay, so another thing that we get from the book that C.T. Wynn wrote, The Score, is this idea of achievement-based players versus striving-based players. How many of you guys know type A people where they're competitive about everything and it's always about being the best and this and that, and you can kind of tell that it's really about looking good and showing off, right? Great. Okay, we all know somebody like that. But where in our lives, when we're trying to play the game, do we show up that way as well? Where it's really more about achievement. We're not happy, we're not having fun, we're not really playing the game unless we're achieving, which means we're winning, we're dominating in the game. Versus striving-based players say, I'm just playing the game to play the game. These are the fly fishermen. These are the people that have learned to mountain bike in a different way. Mountain biking in an achievement-based way would be, I went out and I was the fastest person that ever rode that. I beat my personal time every single time, even though I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have if I had ridden it differently, right? Achievement-based fundraising is my startup is not even completely successful because I didn't raise any money. Versus striving is, hey, the world is giving me feedback. Something is missing in my equation to raise money. Either my offer is not good or the audience I've presented it to does not work. And that offer audience thing is something we have to do before we ever go fundraise because the clients have to say yes. So we teach thousands of founders from all over the world. We have some of the largest cohorts, 300 founder cohorts, more than once a year. We do fundraising summits with some of the best fundraisers from all over the world. The average person in our summit has raised $100 million on the low end. And we do these summits multiple times a year. I'll do 50 interviews with men and women from all over the world raising huge quantities of money. And I can tell you that go-to market is far more important than go-to fundraise. This is what the data shows over and over and over. Most founders, I can tell very quickly if they're going to make it on a fundraise because they want to skip the early homework of I talked to 100, I talked to 200, 300, 500, 1,000 clients and customers. This is the feedback that they have given us. This feedback has armed us with so much information we can now give the messaging perfectly back to clients and customers to get more. We know we're working on the right problem. We know we now have the solution for that problem, which has led us to building the right product. You see the order? People skip this. They want to do, they build a solution looking for a problem to solve in the market, and then they wonder why they can't fundraise. 80% of fundraising comes down to your go-to market. The other 20% is your fundraising fluency and your capital network, which takes time to build. If you're trying to fundraise right now and you don't have a capital network, you need to start over. You've got to start from a place where you expect you're going to spend 6 to 8 months or more because you've got to build those relationships first before you go pitch them. Also, in a world of AI, AI has flattened product. Product used to be this big moat. It used to be this thing that you had to have money to go build. But now in a world where 5 million 10 plus years ago is now $50,000 in tech can build, $50,000 10 years ago is now worth free. It's free. All that tech is free now. What does that mean if we translate that into investor expectations? I'm an investor. I'm a full-time investor for over 10 years. I've been doing capital for 20 plus years. What it means is I and the investment community, we expect more from you having less. We expect you to do more with less than ever before. And so AI, how many of you guys are non-technical founders? Raise your hand. That's me too. Okay, there's only a couple of us in here. Everybody else is technical. Awesome. Guess what, guys? Do you think it's awesome to be non-technical or technical? It used to be awesome to be technical. Now, the non-technical founder is coming for your lunchbox money. Yep. Why? Because non-technical founders are not technical. They're better at sales, they're better at marketing, they're better at raising money because their job is to do that portion. Fundraising is a marketing and sales exercise, by the way, right? And distribution is king, and it's really what makes the difference between successful startups that raise or don't raise. First-time founders focus on product, second-time founders focus on distribution. So, if product is no longer as big a moat as it used to be, a protective measure for your venture, if vibe coding can build it to 60 or 70% in a weekend, what does that effectively mean? Guys, I want you to understand something. It means this. It means higher noise to signal ratio in the fundraising market. Why? Two things. A, more founders now are going to be entering the market that can potentially get better distribution than you because in a world where AI can help you build stuff, the only thing that matters is go-to market now. Getting distribution. The second part, bunch of founders are going to be like, oh, I can now use this to spam a bunch of investors. So that is, again, a high noise to signal ratio. The noise to signal ratio of great founders to those that were fundable was pretty bad before. An average VC group would look at 1,000 deals and choose to do 5 in a year, 6 in a year. Now that number is going to climb even more because founders are going to be lazy and they're going to think, oh, I just need to get this done. That's not playing the game. They're just going to try to skip through that. So that's something I want you guys to heavily think about. Now, one of the challenges that comes from achievement play versus striving play is that we end up, because we always want to measure everything, we measure what's easy instead of measuring what matters. Does that make sense? Because of that, we start measuring the stuff that's hard to quantify, and we measure what we need, which is easy, basically from like a quantitative basis. So, for example, I ride an e-bike. I didn't used to ride an e-bike. People say I'm lazy. I'm like, cool. I'm not riding my bike for your enjoyment. I'm riding it for mine. I'm very, very busy. If I'm out on a trail and an e-bike allows me to ride faster, which increases my enjoyment level, I'm playing the game in a different way now. What does that mean? It means I'm riding my bike in a way where my fun level is going up. That for me, I don't need to be sold more than that. You're telling me I can go 2 to 3 times as far in half the time. I put 6,500 hard-won mountain bike miles on my old bike. But the minute I got, and when I say hard-won, you see these trails, they look like cliffs. But the e-bike has breathed new life into this thing for me. It's made it more playful. So are all my goals wrapped up in how far, how tall, how long, how many days? Or now do I get to say, this is so much more fun. I'm having so much more fun on my bike. Now what does this have to do with fundraising? Guys, there's tools that if used properly now can make the enjoyment portion go up as long as you decide that you're actually excited to go out and fundraise, you're excited to find the future marriage partners for your business that are going to help bring liquidity into what you're doing, right? And so I would just suggest sometimes people are not thinking about this the way that they should. If you go in with the bad energy to fundraise and you hate it, I promise you everybody can feel it. So this is the reason why how you're choosing to play the game is absolutely awesome, because it makes a huge difference. I had to make a switch as a VC several years ago when I started building fundraising platforms. I'm like, I love fundraising and fundraising loves me. And I've gotten to the point where it's not that I just love it. I live, sleep, and breathe fundraising. I live, sleep, and breathe getting to market. I live, sleep, and breathe launching projects. I love it. It's so much fun. It also is fun to play the game to see how well can we do. My team even gets a little competitive with this. They're all fighting over who can bring in the best deal flow into our organization, right? Who can bring in the best projects that we're most excited about. Another thing with values capture, how many of you guys believe, now that you're seeing this through this lens, that you've had some of your own values be captured a little bit? Okay, let's make this like not so heady. How many of you as founders see so many other founders trying to go raise money and automatically assume that's what you need to do? That's your values being captured as an example. Raising money is not bad. Not raising money is not bad. Make it intentional. Decide which games you're playing and when, and look at it that way. And if you don't, you're basically driving and marching to the drum of somebody else, and I don't think that's very intentional. I think most businesses should have a highly bootstrap mentality the vast majority of the time. Want to know what that requires, guys? A founder that knows how to sell. Want to know why Utah founders are better than other founders? Because they go knock on doors and sell Jesus for 2 years and they get rejected every single day. This is the reason they build the best startups, because they're predisposed towards sales. A founder that's predisposed towards sales isn't going to go build a bunch of product for 2 years or several months and never talk to anyone. They're going to go talk to them immediately, right? Most founders try to raise on something that has never been battle tested. It's never survived contact with the client saying, that's not what I need, that's not what I want. Or the price doesn't work for me. The offer doesn't match the problem that I need you to solve for me. And then you wonder why you can't fundraise. Guys, investors were not that sophisticated at the end of the day. We're looking for projects that the market wants, that you can demonstrate the market wants. Now, Kurt, I don't have traction in revenue. Fine. Show me the data of the 1,000 interviews you did. Show me what you've learned from that. That sets you apart from other founders, because most founders are not going to go collect 1,000 interviews. And I don't just mean you did surveys. I mean you actually talked to, on the phone, in the person. When a founder's output to clarify they're working on the right problem fit way before market fit, I get interested. And when we do our pitch kung fu's every single Thursday, right? For 4 years straight, come hell or high water, we have had thousands of founders and fund managers pitching in front of all the different capital types. Last Thursday, we had a bunch of family offices in the room. What am I listening for more than anything else? Two things. A founder that's got an obsession with the problem and will not let it go and they have a personal connection to it. And second is, what did you do to make sure you're working on the right problem? And that when you went and talked to the client, they told you that it was immediate and it was painful and they're ready to give you money the minute your solution exists. Does that make sense? Founders don't have this data when they come and pitch most of the time. This is the reason why the pitch kung fu process and getting prepared and practice pitching long before is a very important game every founder needs to be playing instead of showing up and expecting they're going to get funded the first time. It's ridiculous, right? So another thing that we could say, guys, everything that a founder creates starts first in the mind, right? And then gets turned into the physical world through action, through effort, through energy over time, right? Sounds a little woo-woo, but at the end of the day, are we living by our values or is the world capturing those values? Is the source of our values external or internal? What is our reason for building a startup? There are founders that I could probably name, maybe I shouldn't, that have been able to build very large startups and raise lots of money and still ended up after raising billions with companies that shrunk. Why? I would suggest their values were captured by the world and their values were not proper relative to what they wanted to build. How pure is what you're trying to do? Is it strictly about making money? You won't make it if it is, I can tell you that. The founders that cannot stop working on the problem, they cannot stop thinking about it. They wake up at night in a cold sweat. They can't stop working on serving the client, the customer. If that's truly the focus versus the product, if the problem is the focus, they will get there. They will figure it out. If I had told you what I've had to live through in order to help solve for what's broken in fundraising, streamlining, simplifying, automating that process, I'm on my third platform to do that now. It's because I can't stop until it's done, right? Now, it's been frustrating that sometimes it didn't work out to my full vision, but at the same time, it's what brought me to all the relationships with all of the capital providers because they know that innovation needs to come in this space. If it takes 9 to 12 months to raise, but AI and blockchain are moving at the speed that they are, we need some things to shift and change, right? And again, right now, if you don't know how the game of capital is rigged and you don't know how to play that game, you're going to be very, very frustrated. This is the reason why most people hate fundraising is because A, nobody's ever explained to them what the rules of engagement are, and then they go out, they play it very shortly, and they say, well, this is really hard, this sucks. Well, yeah, I would imagine you would hate mountain biking too if you went 4 times, and it's hotter than Hades out, and somebody doesn't set you up for success. They take you on something where you're scared out of your mind the whole time, you're scared for your life, you're out of breath, and it's really hot, you're sweating to death, and you fall a bunch. You're not going to love it, right? That's okay, guys. Mountain biking isn't for everybody. It's not for people that are like sissy or whatever. You know, you can go have an easy experience. I don't mountain bike that way. Fundraising is not for the faint of heart. I want you to understand what you're getting. You're getting someone to say your company is worth a couple $1 million or more. I'm going to give you all of my money. I'm going to wait for 10 years for you, and this is your dream. Let me fund it for you. Where's the entitlement coming from founders where they just think that that is not an amazing thing? Is that not a privilege? Is that not a blessing? Guys, think about it from that perspective. How fortunate are we in the most prosperous country in the world with the best capital markets in the entire world, with a constitution that was written for a bunch of cowboys and mavericks to create startups in a culture where if we fail, we can try again. This does not exist. I was on the phone with one of the ecosystem builders in the Caribbean. If you fail once in the Caribbean, you're done. We're not backing you. If you fail wisely, playing the game wisely to the best of your abilities, and you look at it from a self-assessing a self-assessing nature, saying, how can I be better as the player in this game? You can go off and raise money again for another venture to go build your dreams, not the investor's dreams. Think about that. This is a pretty damn exciting game, I think, that we get to play. Absolutely. All right. One other last thing. I'm going to give you guys 2 founders real quick. You tell me who's achievement-based versus who's striving-based. 2 very successful business owners. I only got to meet one of these guys, so I can't say for sure, but I've got my opinions. Steve Jobs. Was Steve Jobs achievement-based player? Or was he a striving-based player? I disagree on that strongly, but that's okay. Richard Branson. Is he an achievement-based player or is he a striving-based player? Okay, how much fun do you guys think Richard Branson has? Doesn't it look like he's always having fun? I was on a cruise ship with him. He's always having fun. I don't know how he set up his life this way completely. It's awesome. Now, I'm incredibly grateful for the innovation that Steve Jobs has brought to the market. But I would not say that I look at his life and say I want to be like him as a leader. I would not say I look at his life and say that looks like a lot of fun. When I look at his relationships, I'm not judging. Like, I'm not nearly as talented as Steve Jobs, right? But if I had to choose, I'm going to choose a lifetime of fun and adventure because that's my values. Those don't need to be your values, right? Steve Jobs is a once-in-a-generation type of entrepreneur. There's not a lot of those that go around. So on other metrics, I'd rate him very high. My argument is that Steve Jobs is achievement-based, and he set up teams around him that reinforced only achievement. And then I would say Richard Branson has set up a life of playtime and adventure. And I think that's the difference in their output. They both have been very successful, obviously, in different regards. Okay. Now, we're going to have a very good buddy of mine that came all the way from Chicago to present to you guys today. He's going to give some quick background on some of the things that he and his family have done and some of the things he's done beyond that in success. He's got very creative ways. Mr. Bryant Stratton, please give a round of applause. I need another microphone over here for Bryant, if I can get one. Maceo, if you could see if there's a mic over here that's set up. If not, we'll pass this back and forth. Okay, Bryant. So you're going to tell us why you're here, and we're going to go through a couple of things, but you've got some very unique opinions about games, which you're going to expound on here in a second. You even brought some games with you, very carefully curated ones, and then we're going to talk about deal rooms as well. All right, Mr. Bryant Stratton.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me out today. This is definitely a lot warmer than it is in Chicago right now.
Yeah.
It was actually really nice last night. I woke up with nothing but stars above me, just out in the desert, you know, without the light pollution. And some of the stuff that he's talking about when it comes to like what we pick up in our life is really an idea of behavior. Like, how do you behave? People can pick up on that as fundraisers.
You got to use both.
Oh, I got to use both?
One's for recording, one's for the amplification.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is great. I feel like I'm on the news then.
It's
you know,
a game.
like with
It's
like
a game.
multiple things.
We were going to fail for a minute, and then we made a pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's deeply required in life. So I came into a very modest family in life, and we built a incredibly successful business, and then we lost everything within a generation.
10 figures, guys.
And what I found out from that is it was all behavior. And fundraising as well is behavior driven.
Yep.
You just covered a lot of that. And
One thing I'll say on behavior, founders will have the same pitch with no pivots, no changes, the first pitch all the way to the 100th pitch. I'm like, what? Your behavior should recognize that you need to make a shift as time goes on, right? The adjustment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, there's some really interesting things, like, do I keep digging the hole? Like, I've been at the startup for a while, or do I change the way I work with my wife, or do I change the way I show up at church or wherever I go? Interestingly enough, there was this pattern that I found, and so I became a behavioral economist, which is not something that I mentioned at Thanksgiving dinner for people or really talk about. But really, if you can change your life around, you can change communities' lives around, even if that's just your family, you can then go build startups, you can change the world.
Let me pause real quick. So how many of you guys know what economics is? Feel like you've studied it? I'll just use this one. How many of you guys feel like you've studied economics? If you're a business owner, you want to be ultra successful and you don't study economics, I don't understand why you're not doing that, frankly. If you want a place to start, go study Austrian economics in general, because it's the most aligned with what businesses deal with. Basically, Austrian economics says life isn't fair. If you build something the market doesn't want, sorry, it's on you. And that's the way the majority of the world in the majority of the history of time as it relates to businesses operated. So that's the reason I think that's the one that I would study. Why am I bringing this up? Behavioral economics and behavioral analytics is two sciences brought together that hate each other. It's all the psychologists and all the economists. And the economists say, wait a minute, people act rationally if you give them enough time. Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of years they act rationally, right? Things reset, things go back to equilibrium. The psychologists say, oh, you silly economist. We know that human beings are highly irrational. They don't act rationally. They don't even act in their own self-interest. You guys are idiots. And so basically, if you bring the two of those, the incentives and the economic side, which is what does the volume of people over time like to choose, you've got this new science that's happened over the last 70 years, which is essentially like what drives behavior and how do we help nudge people to do certain things. There were two friends that couldn't be more different, Amos Tversky and Danny Kahneman. They won a Nobel Peace Prize for this topic. So when I found out that he was into behavioral economics, I got excited because here's someone as a community designer, with all the sessions we do over 100 events a year, we do 100 sessions online. We put design into the experience that we create. The reason why Pitch Kung Fu produces results is because some of the stuff that he's very good at in reverse engineering. Okay, back from the commercial.
Yeah, and it actually started over Manhattan's with a buddy of mine who was a bobsledder. And you said you were a bobsledder as
Yep.
well?
Mhm.
Yeah, so he's like, there's been some really famous people over on Deal
Isn't
Rooms.
everybody a bobsledder?
Yeah. Well, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
There's only 2 bobsled tracks in the whole United States, and I happen to grow up next to one of them, which is in Park City, Utah. So that's how.
Yeah, and funny enough, Ellie's story was he never saw snow until 17 and still became an Olympic bobsledder. So that's actually a good example to bridge off of what you said is in your own local environment, there's going to be lots of people like your mom or dad or people who would just tell you yes, right? These are like the worst kinds of feedback you could possibly get, starting out.
But most fundraising is local, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. It usually starts with the friends and family. And then additionally, remember this is also the behavior set that you were born into usually. And we call this the ordinary system or where
Value
you're starting.
capture.
Yep, the value capture. I'm
I
bridging
think the
off of
best
that
book
right there.
I've ever heard on this topic, how many of you guys have read The 4 Agreements?
Oh, yeah.
Gangster book. Basically, it talks about the idea that we are born into a society, a culture, a race, a community, and we adopt whatever those agreements are, whether they serve us or not. You're gonna be super successful. You're an idiot. You're never good enough. Like whatever we're told, we buy into that. We buy into those stories. And the 4 Agreements gives us a very simple framework that's timeless, that's incredible, very difficult to live, that reminds us that stories run our lives. Which stories are we telling ourselves? It's the same thing as values. Are we allowing the stories to come from other people, or are we telling ourselves stories that actually support and enroll us into the future that we want to create?
Yeah, like you, and that's beautiful. Thank you. There's a very famous story. I actually wanted a chance to tell it. Has anybody here ever heard the story of the father who tears up the front page of the newspaper and the child puts it back together? Well, I'll share this with you guys. This is one of my favorite stories. So there's a father in the 70s. He's got a TV. It's a very rare thing. And he's watching TV, and it's a football game. And he loves the football game. And he's worked all week to be here. And his wife is out at the time, and his son is on the floor playing. It's very loud, and he can't hear the game. So he gets really angry, and he goes up, and he goes over there, and he grabs the newspaper, and he rips off the front page, and it's got the picture of a globe on it, the world we all live in. And he tears it up, and he throws it all over the ground. And he says, stop playing so loud, right? And put the world back together and be quiet. And the boy goes to it. And he can't put it together the first time. He doesn't know what the world looks like. But he finds out that there's a picture of a man on the back. And he puts the picture of the man together, and the world comes together. And oftentimes when we get outside of what you refer to as groupthink, or those kinds of things that keep us safe, but keep us also from expressing different parts of ourselves, which are intrinsic in startup life and those kinds of things, then if you can't break out of that groupthink, you can't even raise from your friends and family, right? Because they don't think you can actually...
No such thing as a prophet in their own town.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the prophet never has any honor in their hometown is exactly it. And they're going to test you in the ways that the world is made to test you. Nietzsche actually wrote about this as...
This died. Keep
It
going.
did.
Keep going.
Nietzsche actually wrote about this as the dragon. It will try to stop you from becoming the child and do anything new. We can go into the dynamics of that outside of this conversation. So when you look at like the potential around you, most people are stopped by what is local to their own environment. You could call it a self-inflicted thing. So when we started playing games, which is a really interesting transition, we started noticing the one thing that happens in games is really fascinating is everybody's just a player. The guys that play tested this game, which was built by teams of behavioral scientists, some good friends of mine in Pune, India, bottomline.fun. I would love to see their company grow and benefit. This is one of 4 copies in the U.S., and it is probably the most specific. I can get the best results out of knowing like who a founder is by watching them play this game. It's incredible. We also found that the same thing could be done with things like Catan. Like you get less high quality results, but you figure out like who people are. And then anybody here ever played Exploding Kittens? Yeah, like super fun, like with the kids, like really relatable, easy to play. Why I'm showing you this is sometimes small things, without having to have teams of behavioral science build people a game, or like something you could buy for $2 at the Goodwill store, or something even more relatable and small. I started seeing in my life that with small behavioral changes, you could have massive impact. And it actually has a huge impact at the friends and family level, like Kurt said. If you're able to even just test in your local area that people have confidence that you can do it without the yes from your mom or your dad, right? That those people who have always been your doubters, not that you're there to prove it to them, but if you can get yourself to the point where you could just operate without all that validation, then you probably have a good chance of fundraising and starting a startup from there.
So guys, this is interesting that we're talking about this. I got this. So one of the things that I look for more than anything is, does a founder believe that they're the locus of control in their life? When I listen very closely to a founder, are they in control or do they believe the world is in control? If the world is in control, I give you money, we know what's going to happen. If you're in control and you're the source of responsibility, you're the source of ownership of what you create. This sounds like a little thing, but this changes the game they think they're playing in their own mind. It changes their behavior, and thus it changes the results that we end up getting at the end of the day. Does that make sense? Does that track? You guys following? How often do founders think to themselves that the problems are external to them instead of realizing that they have more control than they think? Whatever problem we've experienced in our life, whatever bad experience we grew up with, there is some founder somewhere, sometime, somehow that's overcome that. I guarantee none of us is dealing with the most difficult set of circumstances that has ever existed for somebody to overcome, right? Somebody has had to deal with a much bigger crap sandwich than any of us. So when I'm listening to a founder, I'm listening for 2 things. A, is this the kind of founder that is willing to go out and put the energy, the effort, and the endurance in to solve for the problem side, and at the same time they take personal responsibility, right? So this would be like me saying, well, listen, when it comes to dating, for example, if I ask a woman, tell me about your last 3 relationships, and it's all about how bad these guys are, I'm like, well, what's true about you that you keep attracting that? I do the same thing with myself. And I'll say, hey, if I keep dating the same woman over and over and over, why am I attracting that if it's not a good fit for me? Or what is the universe telling me in feedback that I could be taking into myself? So I look for founders that are highly coachable, highly at cause, meaning they are at cause for the results that they create, and they are aware when they go unconscious. We had some very challenging conversations inside of my team this week where multiple of us, myself included, went unconscious. The question is, do you know when you do it and when you don't? Do you know when you're feeding yourself a line of bullcrap that isn't going to serve you, and it's a story, and you know it's a story, and you can say, okay, I'm telling myself a story right now. I'm really upset. Let me come down from that, right? But again, change the behavior, change the results.
Change the behavior, change the results. Wow. Really, if you're fundraising, you're trying to help someone make a decision, right? If you're in sales, I call that professional decision-making upping. So you have to help someone make a decision. In fact, if you're with your investor, you should know what their other opportunities are. Because you want to say, oh, well, your opportunity cost is these other things. Like if you show up like, hey, your needs are mine, not just like we have a win-win, like I know yours, but Kurt's needs are mine, then you've got a much better chance of doing a deal. Now here's what he said. So if I know that somebody else struggles to make their own decisions and move forward, and I'll give you an example of that. One of the most successful people I know, one of my best friends and mentors, is wildly successful on the financial side. I could go into how all human value actually breaks down to time, ideas, relationships, and money. But on the last one, he is wildly successful. And working together, he was able to make a decision to actually just become an artist and a publisher for the rest of his life. He probably will never, ever build another crazy successful company. But he wasn't able to do that because so many people expected him to be that guy. His own kids only see him as a provider, right? That's it.
So
And-
let's get back to granular real quick.
Okay, help me zone
No,
it in.
no, it's good. It's good. So think about it. You change the identity of the person, they start thinking that they're the locus of control in their own life. They go and they build a startup. They're now successful because it's always their fault. Here's the bad news, it's always your fault, founders. Here's the good news, it's always your fault. Which freaking means
You gotta
if you're
own
not
it.
driving, who
Yeah,
is
own
driving?
it.
And since you're driving, that means you can make adjustments. If you understand the GDP impact of what startups do in the world, if we're talking about business, the biggest game in life is the game of life. But the biggest game in business is 100% unequivocally the startup world. Not small business. They're very, 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 very important. They have a different function. That's more than a third of the United States economy. So I'm rooting for small businesses always. But if we talk about the startup world, do you guys know if you take the 10 largest companies in the United States, in the world, they're all United States companies, by the way, but if you take all three of them, you add them together, that's the third largest economy in the entire world. Just the startups. Just the startups. Okay? So venture capital, in my opinion, and when I say venture capital, I'm talking about fast-moving, highly capitalized startups. They have a larger impact on the innovation of the world. Almost every company you're ever going to mention that's changed how you operate, changed your behavior, creating results for you, is a startup. All because you started at the very beginning of the situation to play a different game where you're at cause, it's your fault, it's your responsibility. What did I learn from this investment pitch? What did I learn from that? It's never blaming anybody else. I can't help a founder that thinks everybody else is at fault, that's at war with the universe, that thinks that God's out to get them. They're going to find plenty of proof to prove that that's true. I can only help founders as the coach at the edge of the field. The player's in the game. They're on the field. So that player has got to believe that they're a sovereign individual, and they have to understand that the leverage that's possible through a startup, starting with them being at source, do founders think that resources are the problem, or do they realize that they're the problem as source, and they attract resources? I know this sounds very woo-woo, but guys, we live in a vibrational world. This is science. You don't need to be religious to believe this. When I was in car stereo stuff when I was in high school, I could get my car to produce frequencies that would make every single piece of the car vibrate at a different time. We live in a vibrational world, okay? And people vibrate. We vibrate energy. So when you go into a pitch and you're not prepared, or you're not in the best energy, or you think that this sucks, or you're scared of the person, you're not going to get the results.
Reschedule.
Well,
Yeah, reschedule.
and the way that you get to be gangster is by volume and practice. Mm-hmm. And most founders come to me with zero volume and no practice, and they expect me to open my Rolodex to them. They expect me to fund them.
On that note, listening
the
to
mic.
my wife is one of the best forms of practice I could have. Like I genuinely have to show up and be present.
You have to keep enrolling your wife that she should be on this training
100%.
team.
And keep dating your investors too. Oh my
Right.
God. They're just people. If they say no, just don't ever ask unless you're into them to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, guys,
Yeah.
your first test most of the time is to enlist some other crazy person into getting into the rowboat with one oar with you. That's most of us as investors, if you can't handle that, you're probably, and it's not to say companies have not been successful with one founder, but historically speaking, looking at the data, guys, it's lonely, it's dark, you're a special kind of crazy. You got to get somebody else that feels the same way to get in the rowboat with one oar. I'll say one oar again until, guys, it becomes an entire steamship. It becomes a cargo container. Now, why do I bring that up? My entire North Star, everything we do with the ecosystems we build, the accelerator, the venture studio, the media capital, the private wealth network, main cell family office side, all of it is because we're building the ecosystem to help founders go from founders to funders. That's the entire goal. Every founder wants to exit their company to be able to reinvest, be able to play the game in a different way or play the game again, right? You guys are nodding your heads. Yes, I know. I can tell that resonates with you guys. Family offices are ones that have played the game well enough that they have FU money. They've made 500 million, $1 billion. I was on the phone with somebody yesterday. Their family never needs to work ever again. 300 family members never need to work again. Sounds pretty nice until you hear the kind of problems they have. He's like, Kurt, we have to make sure all of our kids and all of the team members and the family members, none of them drink and ever do drugs. If they do those two things, which by the way, I will argue, that's you letting external values, that's you letting yourself not be in control, that's you trying to escape. We know how destructive these things are. You've got all the money in the world. You can do anything you want. Nothing's novel anymore. Nothing's interesting and new anymore because you can do it all. You have to find a different source. And as long as that source is external, you got problems. As a founder, if your excuses that come out of your freaking mouth are external, I hear it because I've been trained to hear it. Because I too was unconscious until I went through training that made it very clear to me what happens in that training room is what happens in the real world. People don't think that way. They don't operate that way. Let's talk about application.
I actually want to share something on that. So if you guys would like to join me in a mental exercise, this was also, even though I helped this very wealthy man take his next step and sort of retire in a way, but play a different game, he was able to pick a different game. And you're helping people by starting a startup to start a new pattern in society or a new game or a new part of the market. Like you have to really be strong in this way. So I walked into a gala. Nobody told me it was a black tie event. I walked in like a mountain climber, right? You know, which is very me, you know, out camping, trying to really stay connected to things. And this gentleman taught me this. Often when we go on these adventures, I didn't just do this for him. He did so much for me in the process. He taught me to do something. And if you guys want, join me in closing your eyes. If you're not into this stuff, just observe, all right? Don't do anything, but if I could have your permission here. This is something I use when I go into boardrooms, or I asked Dr. Howard Chrisman, who runs Northwestern in Chicago, has 50,000 employees, as an entrepreneur. This is one of my heroes. How do I approach him without worries? So here's how I do it. So I imagine in my head, I am entering a playground of my own design. There's nothing that I don't want in the world in there. And all the things that I don't want are manageable as well. And I can walk in there and I make no wrong decision. Now, how does that feel?
Good.
Right? Something you'd want to take into any boardroom, right? Mm-hmm. You'd want to be able to free yourself to actually do something.
If you guys think this is a bunch of mumbo jumbo, this is exactly what Michael Jordan did to produce results.
This is what astronauts do.
And they visualize the ball going into the net, them flowing through the air. I do this when I mountain bike. Sometimes I'm just in too much of a hurry and I'm making mistakes instead of being in tune with the mountain, because the mountain is going to freaking win if I really try to like go up hard against it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm a huge fan of visualization separate from meditation and prayer. I think all three of those are three separate things. But how often are you guys monitoring the energy as to how you go in? And look, investors are not that sophisticated. We're all cavemen and cavewomen. We are making a decision whether we like you, whether we trust you. We're making it instinctually in seconds, and then everything else you say after that, in your pitch, in your deck, decks don't get people funded, guys, data rooms don't get people funded, is confirming what they already believe to be true about you. And you're either enrolling them into the vision of what you're creating with their money and taking them into the future with that, or you're disenrolling them. I would know. I've sat through more pitches than anybody I've ever met. 17,000. I live, sleep, and breathe pitches, so I can tell when somebody's full of crap and when they're not pretty freaking quickly, and I can tell when they haven't done the homework and when they're just looking for a quick, can you get me funded? It also is shown in the way that people treat people like their bank accounts. This is a human being deciding to fund you at the end of the day, right? There's a founder that's in the room who exited for a lot of money. And it took them 3 years to get into a working relationship with me. They just were patient. They were never upset. Always patient. Hey, I'd like to show you something. Hey, I'd like to show you something. Always warm energy. They could have certainly had an attitude or be arrogant because they've had some real success. Timing wasn't right for me. Timing wasn't right for them. And they were very patient. Now, I'm not saying you need to wait 3 years. Relationships will move at the speed of permission, the speed of trust. Capital moves at the speed of trust. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about application? We got to get into deal rooms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the deal room stuff was really interesting. 80% of the brokers or private equity guys or fundraisers like Kurt that I worked with, they either did more deals, they did better quality on the deals, or they did the same amount of work with less time. AI.
So let me break this down real quick. So guys, we've been doing Pitch Kung Fu, which is essentially a pitch room online every single week for almost 4 years. There are other places you can go pitch online. But why is it that we have so much capital that's willing to come? Why is it that we have so many great founders? And sometimes the founders are better than others or whatever, different levels of preparation, depending on how hard they hit it. I think they should take it like it's critical because there's always capital in the room. And founders almost always come into these situations where they're playing the game undergunned. They have not practiced their pitch enough. We don't allow founders to read their pitches, which means it has to be memorized, right? So what's the difference between our pitch room and other pitch rooms on the internet? Why is it that ours is so popular? We do it with energy. We do it with personality. We have live music. It's fun. And then we get down to business. And when we get down to business and you're building a freaking mine, you better understand what you're doing, because I got somebody in the room that has taken 20 mines public, right? That's the energy. Okay, I bring this up because now we're transitioning to one of the skill sets that Bryant has. He does online deal rooms where it's very carefully curated, and there's the right energy, the right intention, the right matching, and it creates an uptick in closed transactions. It's very easy for the mind to reduce things and to say, oh, well, I've heard of like a pitch room before. Well, there's a reason why there's a 6-week wait list to get into our pitch room. A, because founders are desperate for capital, and B, because we do a pretty good job, and we're going to make it much better. Coming now to deal rooms, there's a lot of deal rooms, but I want to get into the specifics of, walk us through some of the intentionalities, that's not a word, what makes it different? You know, when I ran a community, before doing all the Founder Funder events that we do every month, we built a community called SPICE, supporting prosperity, impact, contribution, and entrepreneurship. And it was invite only. If you were not deemed to be contribution and purpose driven, we didn't want you there, no matter how much money you made. Can I tell you, between choosing the right leadership and putting them in a room with the right people, the magic, the serendipity, and the synchronicity that happened in these mastermind dinners we did all over the country, we did hundreds of them. It was magical. People are bothering me even today to say, when is Spice 2.0 coming back, right? The only reason I shut it down is because now I'm obsessed with building the best fundraising technology in the world. I live, sleep, and breathe it. I get phone calls from all over the world. I'm comparing notes with family offices. Like, we are hardcore about this. And that's what led me to realizing that go-to-market is more important than fundraising. Go-to-market is more important than fundraising. So walk us through what you've learned about the intentionality of deal rooms. Now, obviously, they can come to the deal rooms we're going to be collaborating on. But what can they also take with them as they start to think about the environments that they create? Guys, when you set up a pitch, are you setting up where it's successful? Are you coming in prepared? Are you coming in with the right understanding of who the person is, what their hot buttons are? If you're trying to pitch somebody in a different environment, are you willing to play the long game? These are intentional thought processes that you need to have. If you're pitching alternative capital and you want them to be patient with you, patient money means maybe they're not having an equity conversation with you. I know I'm moving very fast here, but guys, most people just think all capital is capital. They don't see it as capital macros, capital categories, capital types. They don't understand how they can function. They don't understand fundraising fluency. So they can't play the game at the same level as some of us that have been willing to get the cuts and the bruises and the scars, and they're not willing to learn. They think that fundraising is free. Guys, mark my words, you will get a first-class education in fundraising if you do it long enough. Do you want that to feel like a Harvard education where you get your butt kicked for a year and a half? Or are you actually willing to invest and learn and spend some time and some money and energy in learning how it is? Because guys, this is the rocket fuel for your business. This is an entire other skill set. Nobody expects anyone to be amazing at sales or marketing or operations or recruiting, and yet everybody thinks they're going to go raise money. It is a skill set. It is a skill set, and it's a mindset. Okay, walk us through some of the intentional things.
I love your energy. I really do. I love this guy's energy, and I have come to love that more because of this journey.
Yeah.
And the things that I've been through. Remember how I said I've gotten better at dating my wife that's listening?
I'm glad to hear that.
And if I come into an environment and I don't know you, what do I need to do in order to tune my pitch?
Yeah.
I have to listen.
Yeah.
Right? So I have to be really good at listening
Our
to you right
founders
away.
at Pitch Kung Fu are great listeners. They do not get defensive. The capital guys say, and girls, say, where did you find these founders? I'm like, well, we've already grinded them
Yeah.
through the
Permission's a big
yes,
thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
people listen to the level of permission and trust that they have. But our founders know that we're here to support them, help them grow. This is for their benefit. We're certainly not making a bunch of money on this. So at the end of the day, they know we're here to build ecosystems. But it is so common that they will remark, where did you find founders that are not getting defensive? They're furiously writing notes as they're getting their butt handed to them from their pitch, right? Because they're there for the iterative and feedback process. They understand feedback is what always finds the truth.
Yeah, and Kurt, what he's doing right there for you as a founder is he's smoothing over the relationships, right? So he's telling you, hey, these aren't adversarial people on the other side. They're actually here to see if they could form a team with you, right? So I primarily coach connectors these days. And so, or somebody like Kurt, I'll be designing deal rooms and structure with him. What happened for our connectors is a lot of them were status seekers. So ones that don't name drop do much better, I found. they aren't credible.
How many of you guys have experienced that? You go into a room and they don't announce that they're sitting on 500 million in investable capital. Yeah, it happens. And if you go human to human, which is something we designed into the Spice experience, they weren't allowed to talk about what they did for work when they came in. We hand you some wine, we hand you a drink, no business cards.
That's hard.
Human
That's
to human.
hard,
And yeah, all of a sudden people are stumbling. They're like, what's my identity without my gig, my work? But it allowed people to really connect.
That's one of the reasons I like playing games, because Plato said if you play a game with me for an hour versus talk with me for a year, you'll get to know me better. So when we even just started playing basic games with people were like, in an interesting way, they give themselves permission to come out. So connectors are people too, and they feel as though they need to be around all these wealthy people or things like that. We tuned that. Even their own pitches were a little too broad. They needed to be more specific. They didn't know how to share with other connectors. So like all that dead weight loss in economics or the referral stuff that like if you come to me and you're in biotech, I'm going to send you to Gareth Hicks. He has a 75% fundraising success chance. He may not take you on because that's why he has such a high success chance, but I'll get you to somebody who is your best shot. If it's not me, I'm going to get you to somebody else. People thought by sharing that they were going to lose money. They didn't know how to collaborate. They didn't know how to share. This is the same with founders. Some of your best advocates are going to be other founders or potentially your investors who have been a founder before.
Let me say something on this,
please,
guys.
yeah.
So during the Raise Summits that we do, which I would argue is one of the highest collections of fundraising firepower at any given time anywhere on the planet when we're doing them, you know how many of these interviews they said the same thing? I met the founder that I ended up funding through another founder. Now here's what this means. By you not being an enrolling leader and founder and helping other founders, and by only thinking about capital, you are missing the gateway and the conduit. The resources you are looking for are sitting in the warm market of another founder. I'll say it again. The resources you are looking for, the relationships you are looking for, are sitting in the warm market of another founder. We built this environment called the Danger Room before you come to pitch Kung Fu, where you get to upload a pitch and you had other founders, other go-to market experts, other investors giving you feedback. Can I tell you how much that unlocked capital opportunities for people? If you're really smart and you understand showing up at the party with a bottle of wine and you lead with value, especially with capital players, it's unbelievable what they'll do to unlock their network for you. There's a guy that's a great example of this and a great example of a guy that I think plays a lot in life. Do you guys know who Jesse Itzler is? Okay, Jesse Itzler is a billionaire that's married to a billionaire. The billionaire he's married to is Sarah Blakely. She built Spanx. I'm sure you guys know what that is, right? So I'm sure that Jesse did some quite crazy things to enlist her to be his, partner in life, because she probably wasn't an easy sell. I don't know. She's very capable. Anyway, everything is a game to Jesse. He decides he's doing a race. Okay, I'm hiring a Navy SEAL. You're going to show me how to do this. I'm going to get my butt kicked. And everything is an adventure. Everything is a game. But the other thing about Jesse is he's incredible at relationships, handwritten notes. He overhears you say you want something. He makes it happen.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you what that does to unlock networks. That's a whole other conversation. But Jesse's got a YouTube channel. He's super fun. He's super down to earth. I think he's an incredibly interesting guy. He sold his company to Warren Buffett for a couple billion. He built a private jet company. His pitch is like the stuff of legend, the way he did it. He didn't just pitch a private jet company. He pitched and had a bunch of his clients come into the room and say, I'll buy this if you do this. I'll buy this if you do this. He had 8 of them file in. And the reason he needed to do that is he didn't have a lot of street cred. He didn't have any experience in private jets. They're like, what is this? And they're like, yeah, I'll buy. Here's 50 grand. Here's 50 grand. He created an advantage. He created a room. He created a game in which he could actually win. He could actually play.
Yeah,
and he raised money like that. And then within a short time frame, I would argue, was able to sell his company for several billion.
When I listen to Kurt, he's absolutely right. Start with goodwill. If there's ways you can give, one of the things is you don't need to go with the full behavioral science game, even though it's one of the best in the world. Something off the shelf, something small you can do, it can be a huge gift for others around you. Go create goodwill. Yeah. I'll pause with that when you do that in a really genuine way, when you show up as that man or woman where their intention and their intention and their focus is aligned in life, it shows. And I'll close on that Scrooge showed us this in the Christmas story. He hadn't given others a reason to be generous with him.
That's interesting. That's right. So you guys can find Bryant up here. You can find the accelerator, all of the weekly content, Pitch Kung Fu's at the Venture Forge in the middle. Guys, a little tip, bring your friends. Seriously, they will be impressed. I promise you. They will come and say, because of you, I now got to experience this, and this is a great way to unlock the value without having to put in the effort. Every single Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard, we have Pitch Kung Fu. And then, of course, you've got me on LinkedIn. I'm going to be doing a lot more fundraising content, launched a new YouTube channel. I've already cut 8 episodes. It's going to be deep dives. We will build the best content in the world related to capital, exits, raises, how do they do their market situation. And then I'd like to end with some questions for Mr. Bryant and myself, mostly hopefully for Mr. Bryant. Any questions you guys have, we'll also do a group picture here down at the end. So what questions do you guys have on how you can design an outcome, a game that you can win at, or a situation potentially where you can stack a room for your success? Maybe you host a steakhouse party with the right investors there. There's 5 minutes of business. There's an hour and a half of relationship building. The 5 minutes. Guys, I've been in so many freaking rooms. I've been at so many dinners on the Vegas Strip where business is 3 minutes. The rest of it is just connecting. There's an energy of, we don't need this, we want this, we like you, let's do a deal. I've got somebody that I'm thrilled that we're having conversations that we might be able to partner. Mainsail does a bunch of events for family offices. We do Formula One engagements. We bring the families and everything out to Formula One. This individual's been building Formula One racing tracks for 25 years. Now, we have all sorts of real business we can do, but in my mind, I'm imagining all of the ridiculous experiences we can produce together for these ultra high net worths to really dig into what are their mandates, what is it that you need, what is it that you want, what would get you excited, that we can deliver them because he has that background, right? And so it's really exciting. Go ahead, your question.
Yeah, so I scanned the middle QR code. I saw it said register for events. If I want to sign up to pitch, which I know you said is a 4 to 6 week wait, do I register there or is there somewhere else?
No, just start showing up at the events. Show us you're serious. And believe me, your pitch will get better just by watching the mistakes other people make.
Sounds good. I'll be there on Thursday.
Yeah, and then you can send an unlisted YouTube link. 2 minutes, no decks, no slides, no edits.
Okay.
No edits.
Got it.
That's cheating. Anybody could do a great pitch if they can edit it 15 times.
Like Fleetwood Mac, like lay it down in one track.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What other questions for Bryant, guys? Yeah, it's a schedule, so you can just sign up, and every time we add stuff, you know, like Tech Alley or the go-to market sessions, it's all there, right? Including our in-person events. No questions, really.
So what Kurt said is, if your strategy is good, you'll set yourself up with a good advantage. You'll be able to get your results more readily. So as a prompt, is there some way that you're not getting results where you want to ask a question?
So let's use AI for this, guys. Don't use AI to outsource your thinking. Don't allow your values to be captured because you've outsourced them to the world. You blaming the external world is you outsourcing your values and outsourcing control and outsourcing your freedom by doing that.
I use a prompt with my AI to blame me if I'm not accurate enough.
I love that.
Adversarial it yells at me like it
AI
gets
is
after me.
designed to be
Yeah.
nice and non-challenging, but here's the point I was going to make. You're the strategist. You're the decision maker. You're the leader. Let your AI help create a competitive advantage for you, but don't allow it to outsource the thinking. And that's what a lot of people do, and it shows. I can tell when somebody's script was written by AI or whatever. I can tell when their research is da-da-da. You still have to make the decisions. AI cannot do all of the work. It can't do the most important work. I'll say it another way, guys. Hard skills, which is what we go to school for, that's not what gets you free. That's not what gets you paid. It'll get you paid a couple $100,000 a year, but it won't get you paid to the tune of, 7, 8, 9, 10 figures if that's part of the game you want to play, right? And again, games you build will optimize for different things. If you're optimizing for a relationship, think of it that way. Think of it to yourself. This is another game you can play. This pitch may not go in my favor. They may not decide to invest right now, but I'm playing a very different game. The game I'm playing is they decide to invest in the next round. The game I'm playing is they may open up their relationship Rolodex to a bunch of other investors. The game I'm playing is I might just find a new friend that might be able to share. So when I got off the phone with one of these family offices the other day, I realized this is someone that I'm going to have a lot of fun with. Who knows about the money part? Who cares? I know we're going to have fun based on the way that he opened and he shared and he explained He goes, man, my family, we're really boring. We just try to exist and have a good time and have good values and stay out of trouble. He goes, we're not trying to show off to anybody else, you know. And I realized, hey, this is going to be a good friendship. So think about the fundraising in those ways. If you take the long way, guys, funders of a feather flock together. We all know each other. We all hang out. We like to compare investments. We like to share. So the better you can take time to really build the relationship, and again, come with a bottle of wine to the party, always be adding value. I don't know when I'm in the room with a value-oriented person when we're fighting over wait, what can I do for you? No, what can I do for you? And it's like, okay, we go back and forth, right? But if you play the long game with the funders, it always works out best. Because if you're compelling enough, it may not be a fit for them, but they'll introduce you to somebody else. Any other questions? All right, come grab a picture, guys. I, again, will say that VC is one of the funnest and most exciting games you can play is to come build a startup. It is certainly one that requires a lot of endurance, but welcome to Who's Got My Money, guys.